the Action Shooting Show. Tonight we have Mike Ford with us, as we have a lot, and then our friend Andres. And you have to pronounce your last name because I always forget how that's pronounced.
Isidro.
Isidro. All right.
Yeah.
So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit since you've not been on here before?
Yeah, sure. My name is Andres Isidro. Gosh, I don't know. I've been doing this. I've been doing run and gun since 2017. I actually met Mike Ford probably at that first Rockcastle Legion, and prior to that, I was in the Marines for 6 years, and now I'm just kind of a full-time dad that dry fires obsessively, and just does all this crazy Type 3 fun. Yeah, really not a whole lot to me.
All right. Well, there you go.
Not very many hobbies.
Yep, that's how you get good at one hobby instead of doing a whole bunch of things. So,
yes.
All right. Well, he's on here with us tonight because we're going to be doing an after action on the Midnight Madness that was put on by Tenet Group down in Kentucky. Do you guys remember the name of that town in Kentucky? I should have looked this up. In Kentucky, Tenet Group, I don't even remember the range now.
The range was like Cedar Creek Precision.
Cedar Creek. I'll put on the screen somewhere the location of it because it's a newer facility. It's really nice. If you're in that area, you should definitely check it out. I don't know if it's open to the public or if you got to be a member, but if you're in the area, you definitely want to check it out. As always, like and subscribe to this. Share it with your friends. I will say we just got a text from one of our friends this weekend who was at the gun run in West Virginia. And he said that there was a guy there and he brought a couple of his friends and it was their first run and gun. And I guess they found out about run and gun through the Action Shooting Show is what was told to me. So that's kind of why we do this. We're not making money. We're not getting Insta famous or anything like that. We just like to help spread the word on these sports and shooting. And you guys sharing that helps out. So I guess we'll get started here. So this was, as the name implies, Midnight Madness. It was a night match. All three of us here shot the night vision division, but they also had a white light division. All three of us RO'd, so you're going to hear kind of from the RO day perspective. The competitors actually, like usual, got a much nicer day. The illumination was phenomenal on Competitors Day, but later in RO Day it did get pretty good too, so we can't complain too much. All right, well, we're gonna get started here with gear used. Andres, would you like to start with your gear?
Sure. So pistol of choice is Staccato P. Been shooting this for probably about 3 years or so. I have a 509T enclosed red dot on there that I primarily use that as the primary aiming system. I have a Streamlight TLR VIR2 on here, which has both IR and it has a IR illuminator and laser, and then you can switch it over to white light. I don't actually use this. This is more of like my backup sighting system for the red dot. I'm just so used to shooting with the red dot on it. Like I don't even think to activate the laser. And it is kind of nice for whenever I'm shooting like an enclosed position, or if it's like barricades with like ports very low to the ground, with your night vision on, it's really difficult to get your head down there. So like I'm literally just, I stick my gun down in the port and I'm like looking around, around the side of the barricade. So it is useful in that instance, but for the most part, it's the 509T is what I'm using. Then for a rifle, 11.5 SBR has a YHM T2 on it, Cloud Rain 2.0, I believe, the micro version, and then a full power D-ball A3 and a another Holosun Ames this time. That's more of my backup and it's my primary. And then helmet OpsCore carbon that I picked up used for a really good price. I have the what is it called? The OpsCore amp arms, and then with adapters, I have some surplus Sordons on there. And then for the actual night vision, I have some RNVGs with L3 filmless tubes in them. And then test rig back there somewhere, but it's a Cryo Precision Airlight. And then I had a belt that was made by my friend who's a Marine down in Florida, called the Brawler belt, which is really stiff, just your typical inner outer belt with a molly on the outside. And then I had the staccato and a Surefire, or not Surefire, the Safari land holster for retention.
All right, good deal. And Mike, why don't you share yours? Because my rifle that I've shot was the rifle that Mike shot. I borrowed his rifle, so he's got all the details on that one.
Yeah, so I use my standard Spear's chest rig that I normally use for a lot of running gun stuff, and ran the S-Tac inner outer belt, just playing with that style to see if I like it. At some point, I think I'm going to move to inner outer, but still has molly on the outside. And then wavered back and forth on what handgun to run, and then just kind of went with Old Faithful and broke out the G45 with the Acro, same Streamlight light that Andres was running, and ran good, no issues. And then for a rifle, I ran SBR. This is a LMT shovel nose, and it's got the ambi lower, the Voltor A5 buffer system, and then EOTech. I pulled the magnifier off for the match, and then a full power D-ball, and then had a YHM T2 on it as well. And then for the light on the side, it's the Surefire Vampire. And then for a helmet, I ran OpsCore Bump. Someone helped me find one on sale, and it works pretty good. And then I ran a PVS 14 with a filmless L3 green tube. So still in the Porsche camp over here with a single tube. But yep, that was my kit. Ryan, I know I described part of your kit right there, but
Yep. So I borrowed Mike's rifle. I'm still fairly new to night vision stuff, so I've not set up a night vision upper or night vision gun yet. I used a Staccato as well, Staccato P. I've got a 507 Hollow Sun on that, and then I also ran the TLR VIR. I do flip it on every stage. Like Andres, I default to the dot a lot more, but there's situations or times it's like whether I saw the dot or I saw the laser, I shot whichever one I saw first. You know what I mean? Like I'm not focused on one or the other. So, but other matches using that light, I've done the same thing, like shooting low ports or whatever. You just kind of stick it out there and stick the laser on something. So,
yeah, it's a nice convenience.
It is. And then some of the stage, I mean, just the IR illuminator, there was times where it was nice to have a little bit of extra light depending on what you were doing. As far as tubes, I definitely have the poorest of the setup. So I just have a standard PVS 14 with a Omni 8 tube in it. It's clear. There's no blems. It's not, it's pretty clear as far as that's concerned, but there's definitely better spec tubes. But I would say it does the job. I mean, you can get a lot better, but you can see in the dark, and it works. My helmet is awful, and that's next up on the list of getting upgraded because it's literally a Walmart bicycle like ProTac helmet that I've just mounted night vision on, so it gets a little uncomfortable, but it works.
Well, so back in the day, that was the go-to. So
yeah. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm looking at getting a new helmet here, but it didn't happen before this match, and anything I scored in this match, the helmet and the night vision weren't the limiting factors. I was the limiting factor before the gear. So, all right, we will move on from that. Let me get my notes out here. So we're going to start off. There's really no, as far as flavor, distance, divisions, there was the two divisions we said, white light or NV. It was, I think build is like a 5K. I think most people got just around 4 miles. I got significantly more, getting lost on RO day, but that happens. Yeah. That's the first time I've ever gone that far off course, but it's bound to happen to you every once in a while. All right, so let's move on. We'll start with stage 1. I will describe this one because I worked this stage. There was a lot going on in this, and we'll just kind of work our way through the match. So the shooter came up, and they had their pistol holstered empty. They made their rifle ready, and on the start beep, they went into a room, and they were told just shoot the targets as soon as you see them. You're going to see 2 targets. After that, you're going to have 4 positions with glow sticks lighting it up. And then once you shoot all that, you're going to leave that bay. You're going to run over to the second bay. And then from there, the RO told you what to do. So that was kind of where I was running that. So we started them off. They went into a big open room. Competitors Day, they actually had like a boom box. Like I think they called it the disco machine, because they had like a Bluetooth thing just blaring out, house music and just different, upbeat music. And then that had like a strobe light on it, and they had some like blue lights because they had photographers there taking pictures. So once you came in, it was kind of a big empty room. You moved to the left. There was 2 paper targets that you could see kind of as you're coming in that most people shot on the move. And from there, you went forward to a position. Like I said, there's 4 positions that had a mix of paper, and then at the very back berm, there was always like a piece of steel. So you'd shoot like 2 or 3 pieces of paper, and then that steel, and then move to the next position. And then you were kind of shooting between some boards or resting on top. But each of those 4 positions you finish shooting, you would dump your rifle, so go out of that, sprint over along to the next berm or next bay, and from there, you just had me, the RO, screaming at you, trying to tell you what to do. So the first thing you did was after a certain point, you would be allowed to draw and load your gun. So they'd load their pistol up. They had a dueling tree, and then you had, I have to look at my notes, 3 or 4 positions. I think it was 3 positions. They had 3 tires out there, and then 3 pieces of steel in front of that. So you'd have to shoot 1 shot, hit the target through the tires, and then over top of the barrels, and then the next tire over top of the barrels, 3rd tire over top of the barrel. And then if you look just to your left, there was a plate rack that had like 4 plates on it. You shot those 4 plates and you are finished. If that sounds like a lot to do in 120 seconds, you would be right, because there was a pretty substantial par out on that stage. We had quite a few people not make the time, and there was a lot going on. So I shot it. I mean, it was my stage. I was RO in the first half of the day, so I kind of knew what was going on. I shot it pretty decent. Andres, how did you do on that one? I think you had a pretty good run.
One of the things I've been working on is like moving really aggressively and like quickly. And so that was like a good thing I did on that stage. That's what kind of saved me. But I got really, really sucked in on that first part where I just focused on everything further out and then completely missed the like a target, like the close targets that were like 3 feet in front of you. Completely missed like 3 of those, and I talked to Matt Stinnett afterwards. I was like, because on that stage, now that I'm thinking about it, there was the where they would put 2 cardboards together, but without a head. And I was like, and he also like they had the colors flipped, so it was some were white, some were cardboard brown. So I was just like,
Oh no, they were all. That was the confusing thing. I forgot
Yeah.
to
were
mention
they
that
all?
they were all white, but they
Yeah,
had some paper that had hands spray painted on it that were
yeah,
no
that's
shoots.
what
You
it
know, they
was.
had like hands like this. So
Yeah.
at night, especially through nods, distinguishing where that no shoot and where that shoot were on top of each other was not easy. And a couple of those
Yeah.
partials were very thin partials for that kind of situation.
Yeah. So I didn't I don't think I had any hits on the no shoots, but like I had a split second of doubt where like I couldn't tell at all like any kind of different like where the defining line between the two. So I was just like, all right, well I'm just gonna kind of put the laser right there, and then hopefully I don't hit any no shoots. Didn't hit any no shoots, and then just like completely forgot like the targets that were like 3 feet in front of me. So I sped through that pretty quickly. It wasn't really that too bad. I had a moment of kind of not really like towing the line of safety is whenever I go to load my rifle, and next to like the beginning position for the shooter is the Connex box, and the photographers are on top of that. They're like 10 feet up to the side. And whenever I go to load a rifle, I always do kind of like a muzzle up high. And as I did it, I locked the bolt to the rear, and I put the magazine in. I'm like, yeah, I probably should do that. And Matt's right about the same time. Stennett's like, yeah, maybe don't point your muzzle in that direction because there's people like right there. So like, yeah, my bad, sorry about that. So got that all done. Nope, didn't kill any no shoots. Then proceeded to get wasted by cardboard like 3 feet in front of me because I was completely tunnel vision. Like I guess these little midgets they're gonna get me. So yeah, I thought it was a really fun stage. The complexity was a bit much. The first two stages, and obviously we'll get to stage two, but the first two stages were two-part stages, and they had a decent amount of complexity to them, and they could probably stand to have the par time adjusted just a little bit.
Yeah, and I talked to some of the match directors about it. There was, at least on that stage, there was a couple things I think you could do design wise to have made that a little less confusing and a little easier for people to shoot. Still make it it'd still be a hard stage, but it would have been a little less of the. I mean, I was there I had to yell the whole time and try to stay on top of it so that I wasn't slowing people down. So yeah, it was a good stage, but it was one of the harder stages I've RO'd in a pretty long while. So
Yeah,
Mike, if you want to finish dry firing, do you want to talk about how you did it? I'm gonna get you some meds. We're gonna slip you some of Mary's Adderall so we can keep you focused for 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be a interesting experience. So stage one was definitely drinking out of a fire hose at that match. There's just a lot going on. As fun as their shoot house was, it was the worst paper target presentation I've ever experienced because absolutely, I don't think any of us are used to shooting white targets, especially with white no shoots with spray painted hands on them. Like you just kind of have to guess. And for me, I was just like, all right, well, I'm going to try to sink, 2 or 3 rounds along the top, like inch and a half to 2 inches of where the shoot is going to be. So it slowed me down a little bit. And slowing down also made me realize there was more stuff right in front of me. Um, I worked through there. It felt like it took an eternity. It was probably pretty reasonable, though, because I had an okay stage time. Um, and then dumped rifle, went over to the section where the tires, like tractor tires, barrels were, and because it wasn't real easy to understand in the stage brief what was going on over there, and because you're running into another bay, I get to the point where I can draw and make my gun hot, and then Ryan is trying to say what the target presentation is, and I'm down, and there's steel close, steel far, and I'm not sure what the heck I'm supposed to hit. So it takes me a moment to realize like what he's saying. I engage the target I'm supposed to, stand up, step to the left. Then he starts feeding me what I'm supposed to shoot again. Well, because you're stepping up and to the left, all that steel that you just shot, like its visual orientation to you, just shifted. And under nods, especially a 14, that shift was really difficult to say, well, what am I supposed to shoot now? And so in that, I stumbled through that second position. And then when I dived down into that second tire, I said, screw this. And since it was steel, I just shot it all. I didn't even bother to listen to what Ryan said shoot. I just shot it all. And I did that for the next couple positions because it was faster. I was even shooting it all, I was outrunning what he could relay to me verbally. And that's not Ryan's fault. It's just it's in the dark. He's moving, I'm moving. It's under nods. There's a lot going on. It's just easier for me to come in, I see steel in front of me, put the dot on the pistol, hammer and go. And so then I get to the plate rack, finish the plate rack, and go to unload and show clear, rack the slide, and the slide locks. I finished that stage with the round in my chamber, and that was with a 21 round Magpul pistol mag for Glock. So I hosed a lot. I didn't miss very much, but just engaging things I didn't need to definitely ate up some ammo, but carried a lot of extra ammo with this match, and it was a good idea to do that. So while stage one could have gone a heck of a lot worse for me, the chaos level in that stage was really high. And then on competitor night, uh, with the music and everything they had going over there, it was definitely a party. The one thing that probably would have been better on competitor night versus I ran really early on RO night. It was raining and spritzling as I was stepping off the start. So it was very dark, zero illume from starlight, moonlight, anything to help me. So the shadows and everything were really bad on stage one, where the lights behind me were broadcasting, hitting the barricades. And I imagine that coming into that a little bit later in RO night, or I think it was probably around 1 a.m. on RO night, it started to clear up a little bit. And then competitor night, it was one of the, you didn't need nods or a white light to shoot some targets. I'm telling you, it was crazy. I imagine that some of that chaos, even though they had the music and stuff going over there, the shadowing and stuff probably wouldn't have been as bad on competitor night. But fun stage, Tenet boys, we love you. Don't do that with your white paper shoots are the same as your white paper no shoots. That was ugly. But other than
Well,
that, fun.
yeah. And one thing I'll mention about, so everyone, when they're shooting under night vision, the name of the game, especially with rifle, a lot of times is shooting active. You got your laser aiming module. But the thing to keep in mind for people, especially in that situation where you have partials, is that your offset, you're not just talking about like a height over bore now, like you would with an optic, is now on a lot of them, your offset to the left or the right. So now you have different distances. You have a left and right and a height over bore offset of your laser. And, if you got your parallel 0 or, whatever. So you really do kind of have to know your gun and your 0 and 0 at different distances with that when you've got a pretty small partial area to hit on some of those. So, as great as like active shooting can be, there are times where maybe that's not your best situation. Did you guys shoot that active or did you shoot that passive?
I shot that with active with laser.
Okay. And that's what I tried to do. And I think I was one down on that. Either a no shoot or one down. I didn't hear, I just saw the score afterwards, but I'm pretty sure I know which one it is because there was one that was way more sporty than the rest of them.
Yeah,
So.
I went active pistol just by kind of habit, and like you, I don't know if I was shooting with the red dot or the the dot and the laser from the flashlight. Doesn't matter. Got the hits. Rifle, definitely it was active. Felt like that was just kind of the fastest thing to do in this scenario.
Yep. Yeah. But again, yeah, you got to make sure you're knowing your offset, because if you just put that laser, right in the center, you're probably going to hit somewhere not at that where that laser's at necessarily. So, all right, well, we'll move on to the next stage. One of you guys want to describe this one, because you guys both worked this one.
Sure. So the first part, it was another 2-part stage, same really tight par time, 120 seconds. There was like a shooting pavilion, like an overhang, and that was the first part of the stage. It was pretty simple. You had rifle slung, empty, and pistol was hot and holstered, I believe. Is that right,
Mhm.
Mike? Yeah, hot and holstered, and then I believe it was 3 targets about 25 yards out. Does that sound about right?
It
For
was
pistol?
3 or 5. I can't remember.
It was 3 to 5, 3 to 5. So not overly complex. I mean, it's like they weren't like big plates either. They're probably like 8 to 10 inch rounds possibly, but 25 yards at nighttime. So some people definitely struggled a little bit on that. This was also one for ROs. We had to kind of like work things out. So once they're done with shooting with that, they had to holster and then climb up a hillside using a rope to pull themselves up, run a short distance, and then get to a VTAC barricade, load rifle, and then you had 5 targets from 100 out all the way out to 200 yards. And the VTAC barricade was strategically placed where there was like 2 trees like this, and like probably about 20 yards ahead of that, in between you and the target, like basically the shooting lane. And that was causing a lot of issues for people, like very strategically placed, like on like deliberate VTAC barricade, like place where it was to make people move around on the VTAC barricade to be able to see all the targets. There was only one spot in the entire VTAC barricade where you could actually see all the targets without having to move. And then people with white light really struggled on this. I mean, to be honest, everyone really struggled on this. But the white light shooters, they struggled the most because of those 2 trees. Whenever you hit the flashlight, that light would reflect back off of those trees and go back in your face, and just kind of makes it, it makes that brighter and everything else darker behind it. So, um, so like I said, Mike and I RO'd this one. It was a pretty fun stage. It was whenever we were first setting up, and I was looking at it, I'm like, the par time's what? 2 minutes? And I was like, yeah. We're gonna need you're gonna need to be hustling on this stage. I told Mike, I was like, you gotta be sprinting on this one, because I think I shot the pistol portion holstered, and then grabbed the rope, and it was like climbing like a monkey, like just like flinging my body up as fast as I possibly could, because I knew like it's gonna be really, really tight. Um, that stage probably had the highest amount of DNFs of, because people are already fatigued and tired and stressed, and and you could either climb up with the rope, or you could take like the longer route around, and some people did that too, and that was really not wise of them. But basically there was a lot of instances where they'd be coming up to the VTAC barricade, load the magazine in, drop the bolt, and then time beep, and be like, unload, show clear, and they wouldn't even get to shoot rifle at all. So that kind of sucked. Conditions varied. Uh, the rain and the condensation weren't super bad for actually seeing it. The problem was it was causing huge amounts of fogging issues on lenses, and that's where people were like struggling, because I basically sat there all night long, just kind of just chilling, and I could see targets all night long. It wasn't really a tube quality issue either. It was just simply fog and condensation on the lenses. So go ahead, Mike.
Uh, well, how'd you shoot it? Tell us about your shooting experience, and then I'll follow up that.
So I kind of gamed it a little bit, because obviously I have the advantage of being the RO. I had the advantage of knowing exactly where the targets were. Kendall Martin, he is a Cola Warrior, if I remember correctly. He's a really good shooter at night, and he definitely proved it on that stage. If I hadn't had any kind of like advantage of knowing exactly where to go and what the targets looked like, where they were, the distances, and the distances don't really matter because it was only out to 200 yards. But if I hadn't known uh, what if I hadn't had all that advantage, I still probably would have gotten in roughly around his time, which I believe he did in like about 89 seconds or so. But pistol wasn't too bad. I'm usually really good at distance shooting with a pistol, so 25 yards not a huge deal. I didn't throw on the illuminator or the laser. The conditions. I also had the advantage over Mike and Ryan was that later on in the night, conditions turned perfect. Like the moon came out, and like there was some parts of the run where I could flip my nods up and see the trail from all the illumination. So that was nice. But cleared pistol, and I had it in my mind like you got to be moving aggressively, like every single stage, like be sprinting as fast as you possibly can. So I cleared pistol, holstered, grabbed the rope, and I was just flinging myself up like a monkey or something, and just like dead run to the VTAC barricade. Went exactly to my spot that I could see everything from. Um, Loaded up, made shots. I did a really good job of like verifying and confirming my zero in the days prior. Um, I used what did I use? A 50-yard converging zero, and it was good out to 200 yards. So I didn't really have any issues with making hits at all. It's just making sure that you're hold the laser steady and get a good trigger squeeze.
All right, I guess I can go then. So this spring my pistol has been a train wreck, and I definitely was a little bit on the struggle bus for my personal standards on the handgun portion of that. But watching a bunch of the competitors go through on competitor night, maybe it wasn't that bad, but definitely ran through that, holstered, went flying up the hill as fast as I could, pulling rope, um, and then got to the VTAC board. And it, for me, I got in the first position, and I think I got my first hits pretty quick. But I think that uh, probably those last three is when the fogging was getting really bad. And of course, my fellow RO can probably verify. I went through high laser, low laser. I even tried popping my vampire on to see if I could get some splash off the targets. I just could not find an illumination setting that worked. Low illum for me, I just was not getting enough uh, like illumination on the target to see it very well. Uh, and it was extremely overcast. It just stopped raining. So between the fogging, the not a lot of ambient for me, and not knowing where they were very well, I was really struggling hard. Um, and probably later I learned that there's some cool filtering and stuff that you can do with night vision, because the key would have been high illum with that filter over the laser. And I'll let my Andres talk about that really quick, because this is pretty key to finishing this stage. But I was able to connect with 4 of the 5 rifle targets before I timed out. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was sporty.
um, yeah, as the RO, I got to see a lot of different types of lasers, and one of the prevailing problems was like having a full power laser. Like that was hopefully it was a big wake up call for a lot of people, and that the laser doesn't really matter too much how powerful it is. In fact, you want kind of less laser, but you want all of the illumination. And I was afterwards, the next morning or the next afternoon, I was talking about like, yeah, man, people really need to put their lasers into low. I'm like, oh, but I couldn't because then my illumination was, too dim. And I keyed them in on a product called an ND, or a neutral density filter. Steiner sells them for the D balls. L3 or EOTech or whoever makes one for the PEC 15s, and I'm not sure if there are any others out on the market. You might have to try and like jerry rig and like make something work. But what this does is it cuts down the power on your illuminations. So on full power, high illum and high laser with the ND filter on, it makes it look pretty dim laser, but still having full power illumination on there. And the problem is, even though like competitors were like using the laser on a target, it would emit so much light off of the beam that it would bounce back off of those trees and just kind of white out the picture. And then another problem is just like using a high power laser, even out to 100 or even 200 yards. Like whenever it hits the target, it can change, like it kind of like splashes a little bit, but if it's close enough, it like again, it's bouncing back all that energy back at you, and it just makes it harder for you to see. So ND filter if you don't have one for your laser.
Yep, and watching his laser versus mine, and we're both running the same D ball, but watching that neutral density filter work, the full power laser at the full illum, the illum was great, but my laser, when it would be on the steel target, and these were full size steel torsos, I think, hanging there, it looked like
all
it
of them
was
except for the last one. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it looked like it was like the size of the target, and it was just bright. So you couldn't really tell where you were at on the target, and it was just kind of a train wreck. And then when he came up with that neutral density filter, it was like it went from where I feel like I'm putting, basketball or beach ball size laser on a target to it looked like he was putting a softball on it. It made a really big difference. So I probably ordered one on the drive home.
And you can use it on a low power laser too to make it even like just a pinprick, and it's pretty nice for if you can see the target really clearly. It's like if you need a little bit extra precision, like that's the way to go. Because a lot of people don't realize, like they think it's a laser, so it's just like a little tiny laser dot. But like if you ever get the chance, like turn your laser on, shine it at a target at 100 yards, and then walk down. You can see like it gets big, and then just imagine like it's getting bigger further out. So.
Yeah.
I didn't come up with this. I'm not like some kind of visionary or something like that. I learned this from my friend Shelby, and we learned it from our night vision guy down in Texas, Night Vision Solutions, that we get all of our night vision stuff from. Cam, really nice dude.
Yeah, and there's a lot to learn. I mean, so being new to it and borrowing Mike's stuff, and like we went out and practiced a little and switching through different settings. With white light, it's almost like in a lot of situations, you can't have too much white light. But with illuminators, our illuminators and stuff, you can absolutely have too much of a good thing. And so we'll talk about later some of the stuff in the woods and stuff. If you hit that, I mean, even Mike's vampire, you would hit it, and it's just all the reflective back, even though it's like early spring and there's really not even that much leaves, there's still enough foliage out there that like certain situations you would hit it and just like you're blinded by it. So you can definitely, I mean, full power has its use. It's great, but there are definitely times where like all the power is not what you want. I did, so on this stage, I did okay on the pistol. Not my best work. There's worse out there for sure. I got up there pretty quick. Just from the hill, I think I only got like one or two of the targets because I just couldn't see them. Just like between seeing it through, with my eyes and then trying to get a laser on it. And, I don't know if it was, I don't even remember what setting I was on, if I had too much illumination or not enough, but it was a struggle. I would say, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, generally when you're talking shooting at night, the further out you're shooting, night vision kind of starts getting an edge on things with your, if you got like a good laser and illuminator. But when we're talking like earlier, like stage 1 or like base stage type stuff, white light's usually the faster way to get through a stage. I mean, obviously it's shooter dependent, but if you got a good shooter with just white, bright white light they can throw on it, or trying to shoot through like nods, seems to me most of the time it's the white light's probably going to be your faster with that up close and personal stuff. Would you guys agree with that, or?
I think for the most part, yes. I think there's also the biggest variable is conditions, because like any kind of like humidity or fog or something like that, when there's a lot of moisture in the air, both of them are going to suffer. Laser, illuminator, or white light. It's going to be rough for both of them, and it just really kind of depends. And also, like, there's probably kind of maybe a training gap, because like there's definitely, like you take a USPSA, grandmaster or something like that, and he's used to shooting during the day. You give him a little primer, or give him like a couple weeks to work on a light, and he's going to tear up a stage on a white light. But I'm also curious, like, how would he act if you gave him a couple weeks on night vision or laser? Like what would be really the like the deciding factor, or like what would be better, faster. But
Yeah, that's true.
I like laser, and the laser and illuminator and all this stuff better.
Yeah, I do. And now when we're talking about humidity, if you throw someone in there with a thermal, guess what? They can't see shit either.
Yeah.
So, when it gets humid, it kind of doesn't matter what you're shooting, white light, IR, thermal, like humidity is not great for seeing at night.
Everyone's suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
definitely. I was just going to mention real quick for the white light, you can tell the people running more of the white LED colored lights, the higher lume, probably a little less candela, struggled more to get light on those long range targets, especially as they were shooting and there was more smoke in the air, versus the guys running more like the clouds, probably what are the new Surefires, the turbos and stuff.
Turbos.
Those lights were doing better. So there's definitely some argument over the color or temperature of your LED, as well as like your candela versus lume. But yeah, that's pretty much what I got for 2.
Yeah. I was gonna say some of those new ones, the deflectors or whatever, they hold a pretty tight beam all the way out there, so that's gonna help, but not as well as, like we're saying, like an illuminator's gonna really punch through that generally better. So, all right, so you run through the woods a little bit, and then you run on to stage 3, and this was rifle only stage. You had 4 targets, and it was 1 hit each from 3 different positions. So you kind of started up on a hill, and you worked your way down a little bit to, I think, again, they just had chem lights there. So you just kind of zigzagged your way down. I don't remember what I finished on this. I shot it. This was maybe one of my better stages. I shot it okay going down. They weren't too. You're shooting it down at a pretty good angle, but they were probably only, I don't know, 125 yards, 100 yards. Like,
I thought it was close to the RO I spoke to. It seemed like it was like 75 to 100.
Okay, 75. Oh. Yeah, I mean, the one thing, if you've never shot through night vision, especially at least a single tube, is you have very little depth perception. So like we were talking, the targets on stage 2, the pistol, I thought they were just really small targets at like 10 yards, as opposed to they were a little bit bigger targets, but just at 25 yards. I'm sure there's things as you get better and more experience that you can kind of gauge some things, but for me, that depth perception is still not something that I'm great at. So yeah,
I personally think that was a nighttime thing that, it looks like it's farther.
And that's probably true too. But with just seeing through one eye, you don't have that information that you do like if you're looking through both of them. So, But yeah, they weren't really far targets. They were down at kind of an extreme angle, but it wasn't like you had to hold off or anything like that from the distance or the angle. You just shot them. So how'd you do on that one, Andres?
So that one was a little bit on the struggle bus, and this is where familiarity with night vision really comes into play. It's not so much about color, it's more about pattern recognition, and this goes for thermal as well, as like knowing what the shape of what is the shape of that thing, like being able to build that kind of recognition in your brain. Because he's like, there's two black targets out there, and I'm like, I see a lot of black out there, man, because it's a dark night, all the trees are casting shadows. Because whenever I went, it was later and I had a little bit of moon, so there was dark shadow, there was a lot of black down there. I'm like looking around, and like, yeah, I kind of see a black round splotch down there. Because that's much different than the straight up and down trees. And I think on that stage, I actually kind of hurt myself falling. And at the very end, I remember this one specifically is like, so at the final position is kind of like it was like a rock, like crevice basically. And in my head, I'm like, oh, that looks like a fighting position. So I like jump into it and I'm like shooting from it. And the RO was like, oh, I didn't really think that you'd jump into that. I'm like, I didn't think so either, but under stress, that's what my brain told me to do. So I did it.
Marine
Yeah, not
gonna Marine.
yeah, get in the hole.
Yeah, the RO told me stop a little bit short because there's kind of like a trench there or whatever. But
Yeah.
I was gonna get shot. I was the guy standing over top of the berm. So Mike, how'd you do on that?
I took a lot of time to try to find where those targets were. The amount of time I spent trying to figure out stages definitely hurt my run time. But I was running a can on my gun, and the first go through, um, poppers, depending on where you hit them, make some different level of sound. And my first run through, it sounded to me like I was hitting right against maybe the very bottom of it, because I thought I could hear something, but it wasn't the loud clank of hitting up top. And so I was shooting, and I'm like, I'm hearing something. Am I hitting? And he's like, I don't know. Are you hitting? And I'm like, I think so. And so then he's like, okay, well then move. So I I was moving and shooting pretty aggressively. And after that, because I'm like, well, now I have to make up for this conversation. And the when I got done, the guy was still up by the first position. So with the can on, he didn't get any of my shots. So I went back up. He told me that he would what time he was just going to give me, and I'm like, I've shot enough, and I'm sure the other guys on here have shot enough that like you kind of have an idea of roughly what that took, and you're like, I don't think so. And I was like, I got enough ammo to reshoot. I'm going to reshoot if you'll let me. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. So off comes the backpack, shuffle magazines, pull out the mags I need, walk over, reset, um, which burned up more time. And so then uh, I'm like, all right, about the right position, everything. And, beeps. I step forward until, where I thought was the right position, you know, hit. And he, he, and like it's clanking. I can hear bullet impact and stuff, and he's not calling hits again. And I get ready to move. I'm like, those were hits. And he's like, you're not at the shooting position. And so he made me move up and re-engage the same targets from like 3 or 4 feet ahead. And I was just
Good
like, yeah, I'd
grief.
be kidding. And so I hit this, got down the second position, made pretty good hits pretty quick. Third position, pretty good hits pretty quick. He was still up by the first position, so he just bopped the timer. But even with that train wreck, I still was 20 seconds faster than what he said he would give me. So considering my reshoot was the classic reshoot, didn't go as well as the first one, I was still 20 seconds faster than what he was going to give me. So I was like, reshooting it was 100% the right way. Um, but still, I lost so much time on that stage with finding the targets, having to reshoot the stage. That hurt. And definitely the target size and everything, it was probably about 75 yards offhand. But with through a PDS 14 in the dark in the woods shooting in an environment I'm not used to, the targets felt like they were 150 yards out there, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was a really good stage, and I would actually say that that's probably a really good style of stage to include. Um, it's just really hard to define shooting positions from like a shooter RO perspective without shoot boxes, with leaves getting kicked up on glow sticks and stuff. To shoot something and then have to step forward 3-4 feet and reshoot it because that wasn't the right. It was just like, well, it's in the dark. It's hard to tell. Um, but yeah, how'd that go for you, Ryan?
Yeah, I talked about mine just a minute ago, but it's hard. ROing a night match, or ROing can be hard anyways. ROing a night match has definitely got a lot of extra challenges. I know when I shot it, my RO went down the whole way with me, but like you're kind of zigzagging back and forth going downhill. Like I feel bad for the ROs on that stage because there was a lot of trip hazards. Like it would have been really easy to eat it trying to follow behind somebody, shooting that stage, especially with a timer and you're focused on them. And that was definitely not an easy stage. I mean, just moving around on a gravel path like I had was challenging in its own right, when you're sprinting behind people and running fast. But yeah, that was not an easy one.
Yeah. I apologize to the RO afterwards because when you shoot enough competitive stuff, when you get an RO that is not decisive in what they're telling you, and well, I don't know, did you hit that? Generally, the best practice is if
Mike gets
they're
cranky is
asking you,
basically
right. Well, if they're asking you and they're willing to let you call your hit, because if you're going to sit there and then you're going to shoot some more and they're going to still be unsure, then you're just going to create that problem and your time's taken away. So I probably came off as a little bit of a tough customer from
prick,
the customer service side of that.
pricks
Karen.
yeah,
yeah. But definitely, like when you're not picking up my time on the shot timer because of can and stuff, and I'm going to probably be a little pushy to try to force some sort of outcome that's decisive. So yeah, and again, it was a tough stage to RO. If I would have been there, I would have struggled to try to run up and down that hillside and not break my neck all night behind 100 people. So tough stage to RO. Good learning lessons all around.
I
Yeah,
only shot the stage once, and I ended up leaving limping after falling, and because I did something really bad to my shin. But I also don't envy the white light shooters because that was a pretty much next to impossible stage for them. The amount of trees that was reflecting back light, I can only imagine. Like it's just like I don't see anything, type deal.
Yep, talking to like Rob Stevens and Tim Cox, some of our better shooters that are also very competent white light shooters. And I remember how things wanted to reflect back with night vision. With white light, they said it was pretty much impossible.
Yeah, I believe that. So, all right, well, let's move on. We didn't mention at the beginning. So throughout this race, there was a couple checkpoints. Basically, like there was going to be glow sticks out there. They weren't red glow sticks. What color were they supposed to be? Were they green?
I
There
didn't
was
find any of them.
yellow and green glow sticks.
Yellow and green,
involved.
and whether it's red or like I spent a bunch of time looking at. I'm colorblind, so there was a red one. Apparently, they were using to mark dangerous areas, and then the like caches they had out there. That was the word I was looking for. They had like green or yellow, they like glow sticks pretty much all look the same to me, just because of my color deficiency. So I spent 2 or 3, 4 minutes in this one area looking for a cache that I thought was there because I saw what I thought was a green glow stick that ended up being a red glow stick. So, that's not the first time that is something like that's got me in a match. But so through the course, there was some caches. I don't know. I can't remember. It was either between 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 where they actually had there was a hole. I don't know if it was maybe entrance to even a cave, because I know they have caves on that property, where you found the glow stick, and then if you started looking, you actually saw like an ammo can down in a hole, a good 5, 6, 10 feet down, and they had a rope that you pulled it up, and then if you pulled that up, inside of it was one of the Legion coins. I at least on RO Day, I don't know what they had on Competitor Day. It may have been the same thing, but if you got those caches, and you could show it at the very last stage, that helped decide what gun you used, as a stage gun. So there was a couple of those throughout. I didn't take notes as to where they were at, but between 3 and 4, 4 and 5, that's when the first one was. So moving on from that, we have stage 4. And this one you had, you're kind of in an open field, kind of in a mode area, and then there was a little bit higher, like rough mode area. And there was 6 pistol plates that you kind of shot going down a path. You would then hot holster and run up to a second position where they had a shotgun there. And the shotgun was staged to where you pretty much had to flip the safety off, rack it, and then you had 4 targets that you shot kind of in that you kind of had to hunt for and shoot in the tall grass. And this is me and Mike were talking about. It was funny because they're explaining the stage brief to me, and me and Mike, being 3 gunners, like, we're fairly competent and knowledgeable shotgun wise. So as they're explaining the pistol, okay, got that. I look and find the pistol targets, and they said, you got to go down there and take it off and charge it. And so I'm like, okay, do I need to hit a button or what's going on here? Because if it's a semi-auto, or if it's a pump gun, you got a button you got to hit. If it's semi-auto, most of the time, that's what you have to do. And so he was like, the safety will be up on top. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Then, if it's a semi-auto, it's a 930 or 940. Like, that's the only 2 normal semi-autos that have that. So I know I don't have to hit a button. All I got to do is rack it. So, when you're getting in a stage where they're telling you ahead of time what gun you're going to use or something like that, if you're not familiar with it, it's pays to ask questions so that you know what you're coming on. Because if that was a Benelli, I may have to press the shell drop before I rack it, or pull the trigger and rack it twice, whatever you do. But that stage I shot pistol, not great, not horrible. And then shot shotgun pretty decent. I went 4 for 4 on them. I found all 4 of them and hit them. It is weird shooting shotgun with night vision because you're not really quite getting the sight picture that you normally would. But it didn't seem to be quite the issue. Actually, I'd kind of like to shoot more shotgun with night vision. That may be something we have to do here, just because shotgun is awesome. And I don't know, maybe I can I'll have to put a pick rail on there and throw one of TLR VIRs on it too, just to see how fast I can shoot shotgun at night. But Andres, how would that go for you?
So that stage actually kind of surprised me. On that stage, I asked the RO, I'm like, do I have to shoot them on the move? Can I shoot them all from right here? Because like where you were, like they kind of like went off to your left as you're looking at them, kind of like a across the wide open field. And he's like, no, you can shoot it all right there. And I'm like, all right, cool. Stand and deliver, beep, draw, and I'm just bang, 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 just clearing them out really easy. Because I didn't really feel like the road looked a little bumpy and rough. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to like sprint across this road or move and shoot at the same time whenever like this is not nearly far enough that I need to like get closer to them. So knocked down all the pistol targets, holstered, and then immediately started sprinting towards the shotgun. Thankfully, I didn't trip or roll my ankle or nothing. Picked up the shotgun. This is where it really surprised me. Is like Mike and Ryan are the three gunners. I'm not a three gunner. Like I do not like shotguns. They don't mesh with my brain. Like I need some kind of sights. Like I can't just point a gun and just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a hit. And like that does not compute in my brain. But like at this point, I was working off pure instinct. Gun just goes straight into my shoulder. And I'm like making hits. Like bang, knocks over, bang, knocks over, bang, knocks over. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually hitting this, because I'm not seeing sights. And then the last one, because I believe it was four shotgun targets. The last one, obviously getting shot with shotgun, they turned that real gray color, and like it blended in perfectly with the the kind of the brown dead grass, and couldn't see it, turned invisible. So thankfully I had a Surefire vampire light on my helmet, put that in the IR mode because I wasn't about to take a penalty for that. And it was like, oh, there it is right in front of me, and bam, last one. So pretty easy stage, real fast pace. It was I liked it. It was pretty fun. Go ahead, Mike.
So that one was interesting. I got there really early on RO night, so all the grass hadn't really been trampled or shot down. And because of pretty much no overhead illumination, everything was super flat, super two-dimensional. And so you couldn't really get depth of like, hey, there's steel behind that grass. So I actually popped my IR helmet light on and was having to walk back and forth. They started me like, if this is your section where your array is, I ended up kind of being started down here. So I took the first couple pistol pretty quickly, and then had to do a run and caught maybe the last two on like a slow down to maybe a stop. But it definitely, my accuracy was good, but seeing them was definitely a problem. When I first rolled up and he said there was going to be a shotgun, I said, what kind of shotgun? And the guy said, and I said, where's the safety? And he said, it's on the back. I'm like, good. All I need to know. I used a Mossberg as a waterfowl hunting guide for a little while in my teens. So it's like, it's not my favorite shotgun, but I know how to run one. And so I got down there and was able to pick it up. And then I had to hunt hard for where those targets were. Again, they were really hidden, and without any overhead light, it was really difficult. Even with the vampire, it just felt super 2D, just so flat. But like once I found them, like instantly, just aimed a little bit lower than I normally with the shotgun, just because I couldn't get down as low to get behind the rib, and connected perfectly. Got good shot on, sent the targets flying. But that was one of those stages that just because it was along a road, it was really hard to tell like where the shooting area was. And then like one of my big concerns is there was no clear marking for like left, right, lateral limit. So like just from a safety standpoint for me, I was probably overly cautious because I don't know where everything is on that range facility. Never been back there during the day, and it wasn't super well marked, and there wasn't a lot of illumination for me to see. So I got through that stage, but definitely was slower than I would have liked. Um, like accuracy was good, didn't drop shots, but just wish I could have gone faster. So yeah.
Yeah, that I used I had a Streamlight Sidewinder Compact 2 on my helmet, and they're not nearly as bright as like the vampires. It worked well for what I got it for, which is task lighting, but I did use that on a couple stages, and it's got like 4 settings. On the brightest, it doesn't wash anything out, but it does, kind of being off the side of your head like that, it does give you a little bit of depth in some of that. So definitely having a helmet light of some sort is not a bad thing to have in a match like that. You may not use it on every stage or every time, but to have it there is definitely helpful. So I know I would turn it on and off when I'm like hunting for targets and stuff, just to see, if it was helping or if it was hurting. All right, so we're heading on to stage 5. And this was a challenging one. I think a lot of people had trouble with this one too. You had 4 targets for pistol in the woods and 5 rifle, and it was fairly dense woods. And they were just kind of spread out and hidden in there. I'm not sure how. This was probably another one that was really hard to shoot with white light, but honestly, finding them even with night vision, and this is one where off the clock, trying to find them, I was playing with the illuminator settings. I was trying the vampire. I mean, messing with my helmet light, like trying to do what I could to see. And I think I think I hit all the pistol, and I think there was just one rifle target I just could not find. I timed out looking for it. But this is definitely one where I imagine what Andres was saying with recognizing shapes and kind of patterns, that the more experience you have under like a night vision tube probably benefits you a lot. Would you agree with that?
Yes. But this stage had its own kind of hiccups. Are you still? So on this one, I was definitely on the struggle bus for this. I come up to the stage and the RO is telling me like, "Oh, don't worry, we freshly painted the targets for you." I'm just like, I don't like the sound of this. And sure enough, when I get up there, they painted it with white, and the where the moon was kind of over my right shoulder, like going down into the it kind of filtered through the trees, but it turned everything just that same white color. So I'm like, all right, I can see the pistol targets, because the pistol targets is like really close up, and rifle. So I cleared pistol really fast, uh, and then cleared the all of the rifle targets except for the last one, and I was just kind of back and forth, and you could tell like this is the stage that I was, my weakest stage, because I was just running back and forth, playing with my illumination, because I just could not find that last bit of steel. Talking to John Stoner about this stage, he recommended taking your rifle, like loosening up the sling and like holding it up above your head or like offset from your body, to try and catch like a shadow like being projected past the target with the illumination on. And I'll have to try and keep that in mind next time. If you went to the first Legion night run and gun event, the same weekend as Legion Memorial, it was a stage that was extremely similar to one on that course, with the basically like the hidden targets.
So
Yeah, I mean, hidden targets in the woods are hard during the day. I mean, there's Legion this year had a bunch of targets spread out, and during the day it was hard to find them, but at night it's even harder. So
Yeah.
Mike, how'd you do on that?
well, first off, I want to point out that not all of us are 7 feet tall and have the wingspan of a 747. So Stoner holding his rifle to the side is probably putting it in the next zip code. So he's going to see some shadow.
Yeah.
Stoner, sorry man, I gotta have some fun with you there. But so this was where the fogging was pretty much peak worst case for me. I was already taking a like superfine microfiber, and like because the fogging was so bad with the moisture level, because the cold front behind the storm hadn't come and cleared some of it out, and so I was having to like inside, outside, all that, and then try to tuck it back in a Ziploc bag so I'm not putting junk on it for later use. And I was standing there, and poor Darren, Darren Thompson, he's such a good RO, but you could tell he's just like, "Come on, Mike, come on." And it was just like I could not find him. I'm like, wiping my lens and shine this light, wipe my lens, shine this laser, and finally, I'm just frustrated, and I just flip my 14 up, to wipe it and to take a deep breath. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I can see these targets that are painted white better with my naked eye than I can with my 14. It would have been a great night to have tritium night sights. Okay, maybe not. Just kidding. But yeah, so what I did is essentially I had to memorize their position in space without the 14, and then load, make ready, and I had my 14 just cammed slightly down. So as soon as he went beep, I dropped it in and I shot those positions in space. Um, it wasn't a stage win for me, but it definitely worked out better than it did for some people. This was one of those stages where if you're outputting any illumination, IR, white, you were screwed because of the amount of underbrush reflecting it back to you. It was really strange to think like you'd almost be better off, and it was just dark enough that like to try to actually look through a red dot and shoot it. While a lot of like I'm running EOTech and Aimpoint, there's some of the better night vision and night red dots. There was just enough like tent and stuff that like you couldn't shoot them without some sort of illumination. But yeah, tough stage, really frustrating. Burned up so much time trying to defog and find those. When if I would have just flipped my 14 up for a couple seconds, I would have found them right away. So I feel like I probably lost 10 or 15 minutes between the different stages just trying to defog and find things. So that was that stage for me. Let's move on. I don't want to remember that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right, so on from there, you went to stage 6. So this one, well, so on the way there was apparently another cache up along a lake or a pond or something. I think there's a pond. I never saw it. I guess they had a lamp somewhere that was close that you would find it. And they also beforehand they mentioned something about Paul Revere. If you knew anything about Paul Revere, it would help you out during it. So apparently there was a lamp in a window of a cabin or something like that. I don't know. I didn't see it. It's split off into 2 directions. There was one way you could take that was longer, and if you got the intel and you took the other direction, it was shorter. I just happened to only see the shorter direction, so I went down and took that way. Also, I can't think it was right before this. There was some party lights hanging in a tree, and then there was a slack line with a rope that if you crossed across that, there's kind of like a waterfall you went over. You got to another cache that had something inside of it. I don't even remember what it was. Did you guys get that? You said you didn't get any caches?
So I got one cache and it was given to me. So the slack line and the party lights, that was creek. They called it the waterfall part, and that was actually directly after stage 6.
Okay, so I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah,
that's the only.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that's the only other one I got. So
yeah, so I crossed, I follow the lights, and like it's very clearly going that direction. But then like I get to the end of it, and like there's nothing there, and I'm like, and so the slack line and the party lights went this way, and then like the trail was coming to this way, and then like now looking back, and I probably should have just kept on going across that creek in that way. But all the lights had been trampled down, the lamp had been trampled down, so it looked like there was no like direction to travel that way. So I'm just like messing around in this creek, and I'm like, I'm getting pretty frustrated at this point because of also stage 6. But at this point, I'm like pretty frustrated. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm kind of lost because like I don't know where to go. If I keep going the slack line and the party lights, that's going to take me into like the downrange area of 6. So that's definitely not what I need to be doing. And right about this time, Jay comes driving by in the side by side, and I start running towards him like flashing my light and screaming at the top of my lungs, like, "Hey, hey, what the f do I do? Help me!" And he's like, "Did you find anything back there?" I'm like, "No, there wasn't anything back there." He's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that." Apparently, the guy before me, uh, very enthusiastic young man, grabbed the entire ammo can, put it in his backpack, and then just ran with it. So, yeah, he gave me a cache, like the cache item, and then he's like, "All right, you see those really dim lights out that direction?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Go that way." I'm like, "All right, cool." There's no lights in between these 2 points though, so maybe maybe fix that up a little bit, and then rope off the end of the cache so people don't go into stage 6. Oh man.
Ye-
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was I think they fixed a lot of this for competitors day.
Yep.
RO day,
Yep.
the course was not marked as well as, because I got a little bit like where you were at. I ended up behind you at that point. You
Mhm.
started in front of me. I took a wrong direction and
Yep.
added a whole bunch of extra distance. But there was a handful of times that creek crossing was one. I think there was another crossing earlier that there was just like no lights anywhere. And it's like, well, I
Mhm.
know there's a path here, but then the path also goes off, like it's just mowed areas. So it's like,
Yeah.
you kind of like, okay, well, the last one had me going straight, but you're not like running straight because I'm not going to rush into the wrong direction, you know? So yeah, there was some stuff on competitor day or RO day, which like um, it could have been marked a little bit better, but you'll have that. Like I said,
Yeah.
I think it was fixed for competitor day. So
They
we'll
Yeah.
they
jump.
ironed out a lot of the
Yeah.
they ironed out a lot of the issues for
And
competitor day, which is
The
good.
shortcut
That's what.
between 5 and 6, the lighting was not working right to
Mhm.
tell you what to do when I went through there. And so, like, I went the long way because, like, the ability to use the intel and stuff wasn't an option. So,
yeah, I went the short way and still had almost 5.5 miles or 5.25, something ridiculous like that. So
Lion
um,
Quill finds a nut, then loses it.
yeah,
I went the short way and like noticing like targets on the right side. I'm like, oh, I'm a little
yeah,
worried here. A
yeah,
little
same.
worried.
Yeah.
Ryan, you're muted, buddy.
Thank you. 6, when they were explaining it to it sounded way more, I don't want to say complicated, but they're trying to explain it to me and you can't really see what you're going to be shooting. So I'm like asking all the questions, like you're overthinking it. Just run down there and shoot the stuff when you see it. And it was, you basically just sprinted down this path and they had like 55-gallon drums stacked, and it's behind each of those, just off to like the left and the right, there was like an array of targets. I don't think there was even any no shoots there. It was just wide open arrays. And basically you just ran down as fast as you could. As soon as you get on that, blast a couple shots, it was 2 to neutralize. And, the 2 that were in that array, and then keep going, and the next 2 in that array. There was 3 arrays like that. And then at the very end, you had 2 pieces of steel that were honestly probably a little closer than they should have been for
Yeah.
shooting it with a rifle. They were, I
Yeah.
don't know if anyone got spalled, but they were pretty darn close. So it was a really fast stage. I was a little slow getting started. Well, I ran kind of fast, but I dropped a shot on that. And that was one of those stages that if you lost any time on that, the difference between first, second, first and 10th was probably only tenths of a second, a second. I mean, it was a pretty quick stage. So yeah, how'd you do on that one?
Yeah. So as mentioned, this is the stage that kind of gave me a little bit of frustration. And like thinking back, probably probably just relax a little bit. Uh, as mentioned, it was kind of just like basically a straight run, and so by the time I started, I was probably one of the last few runners for RO night. So I'm sure the ROs on that stage were just worn out from running back and forth. And so I get up to the stage, and one guy is just eating, and he's like stuffing his face, and I'm like, "Do you want me to show you a clear rifle?" And he's like, "Oh, go over there," and I'm like, okay. And I get to the RO, and he is kind of grumpy with me. He's just like, all right, here you go. There's going to be 2 targets on each, 4 targets on each side, and you're going to go and shoot them. I'm like, okay, is that all you're gonna give me? Like, very very brief and minimal stage brief, and obviously it was a very easy stage. I could have figured it out on my own, but I was like, I kind of expected a little bit more of like an actual stage brief, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And I thought I was putting it out there, really, stepping on the gas. And I think Mike, you shot this way faster than me, by like a second or 2 seconds, and I thought I was trucking along. I struggled with some trigger freeze on this one for whatever reason. Uh, it's just once you cross the little the barrels barricade, like it was just like pop 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 instead of just pop 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 pop, just really laying into the splits. But yeah, I also thought that at the time I was like, oh wow, these are humongous targets, not realizing like, oh no, they're not humongous, they're just really close. So, Mike, how'd you fare on that one, or what'd you think?
So I roll up there and they give me the brief, and like I am so fogged, like I can't see my feet, and I'm just like, well, it is what it is, I guess. And so, the shooter ready, stand by, beep, I take off running. Well, apparently, moving air over a lens can help defog it. So it starts to actually get better as I move. I come up to the first target, and like I had an idea, kind of looking at this long and where the barrels are. Like, all right, this is going to be a hoof it. And I come up to him, and it's like, holy smokes, these targets are huge. You just kind of, So, anyways, I started blasting, and so yeah, I took a lot of those. It just tapping the brakes off a full on sprint, and just enough that I was dumping like 3 rounds into each one just because why not, and got down. I could have pushed farther a little bit forward, that left steel down there. I ended up, firing a couple shots at it. But yeah, that was one of them that was like, you know, even as Ryan says, Mike can move pretty fast for a big guy sometimes, and I was trying to truck along pretty good. I didn't have a whole lot of brakes to engage.
Yeah, I was telling someone today, I've had multiple people go, "How is Mike so fast?" Because he's kind of a big guy, and he does not look fast. He looks like a dad, but Mike is very, very fast. So I think some of it's the bald. It's more aerodynamic. So he's got that going for him. Yeah, I started off shooting 2 each, and then like by the second array in my head it just clicked. It's like, no, you should really be shooting like 3 or 4 rounds per target. Like you're almost done. There's really no reason not to like expend half of a mag on this one on this one stage, So I mean, it was still a fun stage, and that was just an all-out sprint and just pull the trigger as fast as you can. Yeah. So after that, like we said, after that was where you kind of the party lights and the cash, but you made your way towards the end, and at that very end, the last stage, depending on how many cash items you had, decided what gun you used, and the stage was simple. There was 20 bowling pins out there. If you had 1 cash item, you could get a shotgun with like 2 rounds in it. If you had 2 cash items, you could still get the shotgun, or you could choose a CZ Scorpion. And if you had 3 cash items, you got, I'm pretty sure, a full auto MP5 SD. I unfortunately only had the 2, whatever one near the pond or whatever, I didn't 5. So I was like, you know what, 2 rounds, I don't know what kind of choke, I don't know what kind of ammo's in this. Bowling pins sometimes can be a little finicky. I'm going to do the CZ and not the shotgun, which was a mistake on my part, because I knocked 3 or 4. You only had 20 seconds is the other thing. I mean, it was a pretty quick par time. Once you shot the gun empty or decided you were done with it, you could put the gun down and your stage gun, and you could use your pistol, which maybe that was the thing, right? Just put it down at the beginning. Because I shot 3 rounds through the CZ Scorpion, didn't feel right, so I tried to rack it. The thing was jammed up like CZs and PCCs do. They don't run. So commie trash. And by the time I got it down and my pistol out, and I was pretty quick on it, I got like 2 shots off with my pistol. And they're like, time. And I'm like, well, that did not seem like 20 seconds at all. So it was horrible. I had like 4, 5, 6 pins down or something like that. It was not very good. I'll put it that way. So I probably would have been better off with a shotgun, because at least if I would have got 1 round shot off, that probably would have been about the same amount in less time. So what would you pick on that? I guess you had 1, so you had a shotgun or a pistol.
Yeah. So I got up there and he explains everything, and I'm like, well, I only got 1. And he's like, all right, well, you have the shotgun. I'm like, again, not a 3-gunner. I'm like, can I just shoot it with pistol? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, cool. So I had I had 26 round magazines for that. And at the beep, I just stand and delivers. I was just laying into it kind of crazily. Like I was making plenty of hits, but like, I ripped off a reload real quick. I felt the gun like get a little bit too light. So I was like, all right, gonna skip the slide lock, just jammed a fresh mag in there. And that's when I kind of took a mental breath and like, finished out the rest of it and cleared it out. I felt really good about my shooting time. And then I hear that Matt Stennett like did it in like with was it 4 rounds or something like that, and he shot it in like 5 seconds or something. I think I shot it in, I don't remember, not nearly that fast. So what about you, Mike?
So I step up, talk to him. He's like, "What do you have for your cash items?" I tell him. He's like, "Well, what do you want to shoot?" And I was
Uh-oh.
like, "The shotgun's on 2
Mike,
rounds, so
Mike, go back, because you froze up for a second.
Yeah.
He asked you what you wanted to shoot.
So the RO asked what I wanted to shoot. Shotgun, 2, 3 shells. I'm gonna pass on that. The CZ with the dot or the H&K. Well, the H&K had no sighting system, and as much as I wanted that, I have a really hard time sending rounds down range with 0 sights. Like so I ended up grabbing the CZ, and I think it had like a 20 round stick in it, and I think they said there was like 20 bowling pins. So I go almost 1 for 1 across there, and then the CZ's empty, and so I go set on the ground, and the guy's like, "No, no, give it to me." So he stepped over, took it, and then stepped away. Then I drew pistol, hit my last 2. It was like 18 seconds. Yeah, my understanding is the Stennett thing was kind of a freak thing. I think they gave him 6 rounds of shotgun. I was like, well, if you would have given me 6 rounds of shotgun at point blank with bowling pins, I would have picked the shotgun over anything else.
Yeah,
Because I think the presentation was you were supposed to get 2 or 3 rounds of shotgun. So I think that was just kind of maybe an uh-oh on the RO. Because shooting 20 bowling pins and it was like 2 or 4 seconds is like, yeah. What's going on
It was
here?
like 4. It was like 4 or 5 seconds. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. I was told 2 shotgun shells, and I was like, well, not knowing all the other stuff. In retrospect, I should have, because the CZ didn't run. But
well, depending on the shotgun you got, it might not run either. But I mean, it was fun. There was definitely in this stage was probably a reflection of there was a lot of probably newer ROs. There was a ton of ROs that were new to run and gun. That were coming out of like the retired military, former military guys that are still active duty. So probably their experience and understanding of competitive shooting is probably not as well tempered in running gun and understanding how to create that competitive equity. Stages were a lot of fun. I think from everything I heard, it went pretty smooth on competitor night, but RO night there was a lot of learning and lots of little things that maybe could have gone better. But that's why we sign up to be ROs and go do that. Is um, like if you don't give back somehow and all you do is take, then eventually the sport is going to run dry because at some point you can't pay enough money to get the ROs out there because I don't get paid to RO. Ryan, Andres, no one gets paid, at least at these running guns, to RO. You might get a free meal, you might get a free camp spot, or something like that. But it's for the love of the sport and love of the game. And so if people don't step up, the sports won't happen. Fortunately, there's a lot of people that want to help, but it also means there's going to be a variety of experience, and so it's always good to pair up experienced with inexperienced. But yeah, it, I think that was going back to that stage. That was a fun stage to wrap everything up on. Who doesn't love a good classic hose fest?
Yep, that it was. So that was your last stage. You were actually within sight of the finish line. You kind of ran around a pond. You ran up. You were done. Like I said, the whole state. I think the whole course was like 4.25, something like that, is what they said. Yeah, back to Mike's point. I think most part, especially on Competitors Day, they did a good job of mixing some more experienced ROs with maybe newer. Yeah, you can. One sport doesn't necessarily equate to another, and running like if you got guys out in the military, running a range in the military is probably not the same as running a stage in a competition. You got a lot of different or running a police range even. I mean, there's just different things that are going on. So it's kind of good to mix that all up. So we'll go on to final thoughts. Anything we really really liked, anything we'd change, anything like that. So final thoughts. I had a great time. This is my first night running gun. I know hopefully me and Mike are going to do a team one later on this year. So we're going to get a little bit more experience. I learned a ton. I was excited for that. Night vision is new. Leading up to this, I ran. Me and Mike were running and rucking in the woods and just trying to get time under nods. That certainly helped. I felt like I moved through the woods really well. Short of getting lost because I missed a sign, but that was just how the course was marked. That wasn't necessarily the experience of that, but still have a lot of things to learn as far as finding targets and just getting it all comes down to, I think, time, getting that time looking through a night vision tube and really getting your brain trained to what you're seeing. As far as changing the match, it was, I think it was the first running gun at this club or this range. I know that Jay has kind of helped out. Some of these guys have done Legion. That's kind of, they all are there with it. I know Matt does a lot of the organization, so there were certainly some teething and growing pains at this match, but overall, I had a blast. I'm looking forward to them doing it again and coming back and shooting another one. So that's really kind of all I've got. Andres, what do you want to finish up with, or any thoughts?
I was really pleased with how they ironed out any of the potential issues. I'm sure they got the course markings a little bit better. Only thing I wish we could have been provided with was a little bit stronger of chem lights. So on our stage, on stage 2, the targets were basically right in front of us, but if you went more to the right, you'd be looking at stage 1, and if you went more further to the left, then it was just there was no targets out there. And in fact, there was way down there. We were shooting kind of like sideways on a was it a 1,200, 1,500 meter range? Mike, do you remember? I think Mike's frozen again.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
meditating.
Okay. Yeah, it was like approximately like 1,200 meter range, but yeah, if you went too far to the left, like there was people crossing over the range, and that was where that. So, but the chem lights that we were provided to make left and right lateral limits, they were just not very bright at all. I think I doubled or even tripled them up, and they still were just not very bright. They weren't bright for night vision. I'm pretty sure they were probably invisible for the white light people. Yeah, I mean, overall, I've been. This is not my first night match. I usually go to
Yeah, I think they can
Twilight.
go to like 1,500. It's impressive.
Yep, but yeah, I usually go to Twilight for or Pawnee Burial Mound for Twilight, and then I've done at Lead Farm. I've done the night one there, and then I can't think of any others right at this moment. But yeah, so definitely it was definitely a good experience. I really enjoyed it. It was I thought I really enjoyed the stages. It was a good blend and mix of easy and difficult for both white light and night vision, because they can vary wildly, and you don't want it to be lopsided to only be good for white light. You also don't want it to be lopsided to only be good for the night vision shooters. I thought it was a really good blend and mix.
Well, and I it's probably safe to say you weren't too upset with the results, the final results of all of it, since
Yeah.
he is the night vision winner. So congratulations on that. You definitely had a hell of a match.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And huge thanks to the sponsors, everyone, like, especially Noveski. Like, last minute they provided a rifle and suppressor was very impressive. So still haven't gotten that yet. I'm waiting for Noveski to ship to my local FFL. So
it looks awesome. That's a sick rifle. So
yeah, I'll be blasting on all over social media. Mike, are you is he still frozen?
Yeah, he looks like it. Can you hear us, Mike? Or yeah, if he's frozen, why don't we'll wrap this up, and if I need to, I can record Mike later, just his final thoughts, and then kind of edit that in there.
All right, sounds good.
He's frozen. All right, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. I know it's a little bit longer, but we'll hopefully see you out there on the range.